Admiral Loknar of the Draxxian Empire stared at the holographic display, his four eyes narrowing as he studied the small blue planet. His mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his species. Computer, run diagnostics again. This seems too perfect. Loknar swiveled in his command chair, absurdly pleased with himself. Diagnostics confirm previous readings. Admiral, the ship's AI responded in its monotonous voice. Planet designation, Earth. Civilization level, pre-galactic expansion. Military capability, limited to planetary defense. Resource deposits, abundant in Class A, B, and C minerals. Water reserves, excessive. Loknar chuckled, a sound like gravel in a disposal unit. And they call it Earth. How painfully literal. Might as well call it dirt. His second-in-command, Commander Plex, approached with appropriate deference. Admiral, the resource evaluation is complete. This planet could solve our Empire's shortage crisis for the next 50 cycles. Excellent. And their defensive capabilities? Primitive, sir. Mostly projectile weapons, limited energy shields, and a handful of orbital platforms they call satellites. Nothing that could withstand even our smallest warship. Loknar rose from his chair and walked to the viewport, gazing at the blue marble hanging in the blackness of space. His reflection showed the gleaming metals adorning his exoskeleton, each one representing a successful planetary acquisition. 17 worlds had fallen to his particular brand of diplomacy. Earth would make 18. You know, Plex, some commanders would simply take what they want, Loknar mused, running a clawed appendage over the viewport. But that creates such a mess. Rebellions, infrastructure damage, resource contamination. Our way is much cleaner. Your expertise in planetary extortion is unmatched, Admiral, Plex agreed, his tone perfectly calibrated between admiration and professional respect. I prefer to call it accelerated negotiation, Loknar corrected with a wave of his upper limb. We make our demands, demonstrate our power, and they give us what we need. No unnecessary bloodshed, no prolonged occupation. The Draxxian Empire had been experiencing severe resource shortages for the past 3 cycles. Their rapid expansion had outpaced their supply chains, and several mining colonies had recently suffered catastrophic accidents. The High Council was breathing down Loknar's neck, demanding results. Sir, the High Council has requested an update, Plex said, as if reading his thoughts. Tell them we've found the solution to our problems, a primitive world, ripe for harvesting, with minimal defensive capabilities. We'll initiate contact protocols immediately. Loknar turned back to the holographic display, zooming in on various population centers across Earth. Humans scurried about their lives, blissfully unaware of the Draxxian warship hovering at the edge of their solar system. Look at them, Plex. No idea what's coming. It's almost too easy. Loknar indulged in another gravelly chuckle. They begin preparations for first contact. Let's give these humans the honor of meeting their new resource managers. As his crew scrambled to obey, Loknar settled back into his command chair. Another world, another successful extraction, another medal for his collection. Just another day in the illustrious career of the Draxxian Empire's most effective resource acquisition specialist. Earth wouldn't know what hit it, and that was exactly how Admiral Loknar liked it. Broadcasting on all Earth frequencies now, Admiral, announced Lieutenant Kraz, her claws dancing across the communication console. Admiral Loknar adjusted his ceremonial armor, making sure each intimidation spike was perfectly aligned. First impressions were everything in the extortion business. He cleared his throat membranes and stepped onto the transmission platform. Citizens of Earth, Loknar began, his voice dropping to what he considered an impressively menacing register. I am Admiral Loknar of the Draxxian Empire, sovereign rulers of 17 star systems and counting. He paused for dramatic effect, imagining the panic spreading across human communication channels. Our scans indicate your planet possesses resources vital to our continued expansion. How fortunate for you that we prefer cooperation over conquest. Provide us with the following items, and your species may continue its primitive existence undisturbed. A list appeared beside Loknar's holographic image: 500,000 tons of rare earth metals, 30% of Earth's accessible freshwater reserves, and all uranium deposits. You have 7 of your Earth days to begin resource delivery. Failure to comply will result in, shall we say, planetary restructuring. Loknar flashed what the Draxxian diplomatic manual called a friendly threat display, exposing all 4 rows of serrated teeth. We have positioned harmonic destabilizers around your moon as proof of our technological superiority. Observe. He gestured dramatically, and on cue, Lieutenant Kraz activated a minor demonstration. A small, uninhabited crater on the moon's dark side collapsed in on itself. That was merely 0.01% of our capability. Imagine what we could do to your population centers, Loknar continued, practically purring with satisfaction. The choice is simple: compliance or extinction. We await your surrender. The transmission ended, and Loknar turned to his command crew with a self-satisfied click of his mandibles. And now we wait for the panicked response. I'd estimate about 3 hours before their leaders start squabbling, and another 6 before they contact us with their unconditional surrender. Commander Plex looked unusually tense. Sir, requesting permission to prepare the cargo holds for resource transport. Granted. Though I doubt these humans will organize themselves quickly enough to meet our deadline. A small show of force might be necessary, but nothing too destructive. We need their infrastructure intact for maximum resource extraction. Loknar retreated to his private quarters, imagining the medal the High Council would bestow upon him for such an efficient acquisition. 4 hours later, an alert sounded. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth, reported Lieutenant Kraz, sounding puzzled. It's a unified response from something called the United Earth Council. Loknar hurried to the bridge. United Earth Council? That was fast. Put it through. The view screen filled with the image of a human female with dark skin and silver-streaked hair, seated at a long table surrounded by representatives of various human ethnicities. Admiral Loknar, she began, her voice steady and completely devoid of the fear he had anticipated. I am Chairperson Amara Endoi of the United Earth Council. We have received your demands and wish to discuss terms. Loknar blinked all 4 eyes in succession. There are no terms to discuss. You will comply or face destruction. Admiral, Chairperson Endoi continued with an infuriating smile. Surely beings of your advanced development understand the value of diplomatic dialogue. We propose a face-to-face meeting to discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement. Mutually what? Loknar sputtered. We're prepared to offer alternative resources that would better serve your needs while preserving our ecosystem. We request a meeting on neutral ground to present our proposal. Loknar turned to Plex, mandibles twitching in confusion. Is this some sort of primitive negotiation tactic? Unknown, sir, Plex replied. It's unusual for a threatened species to respond with such composure. Loknar turned back to the view screen, eyes narrowing. Very well. You may send 2 representatives to our designated meeting point. Coordinates will follow. But understand this, it changes nothing. You will provide what we demand, or your planet suffers. Excellent, Chairperson Endoi replied, still smiling that irritatingly calm smile. We look forward to meeting you, Admiral Loknar. Earth out. As the transmission ended, Loknar felt a strange sensation in his gut sacs. It wasn't fear, certainly not, perhaps merely indigestion. Sir, ventured Lieutenant Kraz, did they just negotiate a meeting after we threatened to destroy their planet? Apparently, Loknar replied, mandibles clicking in annoyance. Prepare the meeting chamber on Outpost Zenith, and schedule another weapons demonstration. These humans clearly need a stronger reminder of who holds the power here. But as he stalked away, Loknar couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Humans weren't following the standard extortion response protocol at all. Outpost Zenith hung in the darkness of space like an oversized mechanical spider. Originally constructed as a forward operating base during the Draxxian conquest of the Teflon Nebula, it now served primarily as a trading hub and occasional meeting ground for diplomatic engagements, or in this case, for delivering ultimatums. Admiral Loknar paced the conference room, his clawed feet clicking against the metallic floor. This is a waste of time, Plex. We should be preparing cargo shuttles, not entertaining these primitives. Commander Plex adjusted the ceremonial daggers on his uniform. Protocol dictates we hear their proposals, sir. Besides, the High Council appreciates the appearance of diplomacy before resource acquisition. Appearance being the operative word, Loknar grumbled. Fine. But I want a full battalion of guards present. And keep the destabilizer targeting system locked on their major cities. The moment this charade ends, we begin forcible extraction. A junior officer entered with a slight bow. Admiral, the Earth transport has docked. Their representatives are being scanned for weapons now. Bring them in, Loknar ordered, positioning himself at the head of the conference table in what he knew was his most intimidating posture, all four arms resting on ceremonial weapons. The doors slid open to reveal two humans, escorted by Draxxian guards. Loknar had studied their species' physical characteristics, but seeing them in person was different. So soft, so vulnerable. No exoskeleton, minimal natural defensive capabilities. How had such beings achieved even planetary civilization? Admiral Loknar, said the female human, stepping forward without waiting for permission. I am Ambassador Olivia Winters, representing the United Earth Council. This is General Marcus Torres, head of Earth's defense forces. Loknar deliberately didn't rise from his seat. You stand before representatives of the Draxxian Empire. State your proposal quickly, so we can proceed with resource collection. Ambassador Winters, a tall human with auburn hair and piercing green eyes, smiled as if she were greeting a friend rather than facing an alien extortionist. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. We've prepared a presentation we believe will interest you. General Torres, a broad-shouldered male with dark skin and a closely cropped silver beard, stepped forward and activated a holographic display from a device on his wrist. The casual way he operated alien-compatible technology didn't escape Loknar's notice. Let's help each other, Ambassador Winters began, gesturing to the holographic display now showing resource charts. Our scans indicate your empire is facing critical shortages of palladium, rhodium, and fresh water. We can provide these, but in quantities and extraction methods that don't threaten our planet's ecosystem. Loknar blinked rapidly. Their scans? How did primitives scan the resource needs of the Draxxian Empire? In exchange, continued General Torres, his deep voice remarkably steady, we request technological assistance with our atmospheric purification efforts and waste reclamation systems. Loknar slammed all four hands on the table simultaneously, producing a satisfying bang that made junior officers jump. The humans irritatingly didn't flinch. This is not a negotiation, he snarled. You don't make requests. You don't propose exchanges. You provide what we demand, or we take it by force. Your species' survival is the only exchange being offered here. Ambassador Winters tilted her head, looking almost disappointed. Admiral, surely you recognize that sustainable extraction would benefit both our peoples. Stripping our planet would give you resources for perhaps 5 years. A partnership could provide steady supply for centuries. Commander Plex shifted uncomfortably beside Loknar, mandibles twitching in what appeared to be nervousness. The Admiral should perhaps consider, Plex began. Silence. Loknar cut him off. Commander, you forget your place. Turning back to the humans, Loknar rose to his full height, towering over them by at least 2 feet. Your proposal is rejected. You now have 5 Earth days to begin resource delivery, not 7. Each day of delay will result in the destruction of 1 major population center. To Loknar's mounting frustration, neither human displayed appropriate terror. General Torres actually sighed, as if dealing with a particularly difficult child. "Admiral," said Ambassador Winters, "we came prepared to establish a mutually beneficial relationship. Would you at least review our detailed proposal before making your final decision?" "There is nothing to review," Loknar hissed. "This meeting is concluded." As the humans were escorted out, Loknar noticed Commander Plex watching them with an expression he couldn't quite identify. Was it respect? Concern? "Commander, you seem troubled," Loknar said suspiciously. "Just surprised, Admiral," Plex replied carefully. "Their response is unusual for a species facing extortion. Perhaps we should investigate further before proceeding." "Investigate what? Their weakness? Their vulnerability? Their complete inability to defend against our technology?" Loknar laughed harshly. "No, Commander. We proceed as planned. Prepare the weapons demonstration for tomorrow. Let's show these humans exactly what they're facing." But as he watched the humans depart on their shuttle, Loknar couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Something about their confidence didn't align with his extensive experience in planetary extortion. Back aboard his flagship, Admiral Loknar couldn't sleep. The meeting with the human representatives had left him agitated, his instincts buzzing like faulty circuitry. Something wasn't adding up. "Computer, initiate deep surveillance of Earth communications," Loknar ordered, pacing his private chamber. He focused on military channels, government transmissions, anything related to our presence. "Deep surveillance initiated, Admiral," the computer responded. "Preliminary analysis suggests unusual encryption patterns on human communications. Standard decryption algorithms proving ineffective." Loknar froze mid-pace. "Ineffective? That's impossible. Our systems can crack any primitive encryption." "These encryptions appear non-primitive, Admiral." Mandibles twitching with irritation, Loknar summoned his intelligence officer. "Lieutenant Vrex, I want a full surveillance report on Earth technology, specifically their communications capabilities." Hours later, Vrex returned looking distinctly uncomfortable, a data tablet clutched in his lower appendages. "Report, Lieutenant," Loknar demanded. "Sir, we've detected anomalies in Earth's technological profile," Vrex began hesitantly. "Their public communications match our initial assessment of pre-galactic civilization, but we've identified a secondary network using quantum entanglement principles." "Quantum entanglement? That's at least 3 technological leaps beyond their apparent development stage." "There's more, sir," Vrex continued. "When we backtracked their communication signatures, we found evidence they've been intercepting and monitoring our transmissions. For years." Loknar's exoskeleton practically vibrated with rage. "That's absurd. How could primitives intercept Draxxian military-grade communications?" "Unknown, sir. But the evidence suggests they've been aware of our empire long before we discovered them." Commander Plex entered the chamber, having been summoned by Loknar's bellowing. "Admiral, I've reviewed Lieutenant Vrex's findings. There's also evidence of advanced shielding technology around several Earth facilities, previously masked by atmospheric interference." "A clever deception, nothing more," Loknar said, waving a dismissive claw. "They're trying to appear more formidable than they are." "Sir," Plex ventured carefully, "what if they are more formidable than they appear?" "The confident demeanor of their representatives, their knowledge of our resource needs, their advanced encryption, perhaps we should reconsider our approach." Loknar turned on Plex, eyes narrowing to slits. "Reconsider? Based on parlor tricks and technological sleight of hand? Commander, I expected better from you." Admiral, 17 successful planetary acquisitions have perhaps made us overconfident, Plex persisted. Previous targets were accurately assessed pre-contact. Earth is different. We should at least consider their proposal before. Enough. Loknar slammed a fist against the wall, denting the metal. This is exactly what they want. Create doubt, delay our actions, buy time for whatever primitive defense they're cobbling together. He stormed to the viewport, glaring at the distant blue planet. We proceed as planned. Tomorrow we deliver another demonstration of power. Double the intensity. Target one of their oceans, create a tidal disruption. Let's see how confident their ambassador Winters is when her coastlines are flooding. As Plex and Vrex departed, Loknar returned to the surveillance feeds. Humans. Such fragile creatures thinking they could outwit the Draxxian Empire with fake technology and bluffs. He'd faced more impressive deceptions from the gas-dwelling methane collectives of Rigel 9. No, this was simply a delaying tactic. And Admiral Loknar was nobody's fool. Admiral, the deadline has expired, announced Lieutenant Kraz from her station. No resource transports have departed Earth, and the United Earth Council has not communicated since our last meeting. Admiral Loknar sat in his command chair, fingers tapping rhythmically against the armrest. The bridge crew watched him warily, sensing his barely contained fury. As expected, Loknar said with deliberate calm, they need a more convincing demonstration. Target weapons on their Antarctic region, uninhabited, but the resulting ice melt should cause sufficient coastal damage to make our point. Sir, Commander Plex interjected, perhaps one final communication. They've had their chance, Loknar snapped. Weapons Officer Mech, commence targeting sequence. Targeting Antarctic coordinates, Admiral, Mech K confirmed. Harmonic destabilizers at 60% capacity. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The bridge crew braced for the familiar hum of the weapons systems engaging. Instead, silence. Officer Mech, Loknar prompted. Sir, weapons systems are not responding. Mech's claws flew across the control panel. Running diagnostics now. Propulsion systems also non-responsive, Admiral, called another officer. We're detecting unusual code sequences throughout our mainframe. Loknar shot to his feet. Impossible. Activate secondary systems. Initiate security protocols. Admiral, Lieutenant Kraz interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. Priority channel. On screen, Loknar growled. The viewscreen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Winters and General Torres looking as irritatingly calm as before. Behind them stood a team of humans at various control stations. Admiral Loknar, Ambassador Winters began pleasantly. I hope we're not interrupting anything important. What have you done? Loknar demanded, mandibles clicking furiously. General Torres stepped forward. Nothing permanent, Admiral. Just a small demonstration of our own. The view on the screen split to show feeds from various locations across Draxxian space. Loknar felt his internal organs constrict as he recognized the ships displayed Draxxian warships, supply vessels, and defense platforms. All seemingly powered down, drifting. That's the Relentless in the Procyon system, Torres explained conversationally. And there's the inevitable near Tau Ceti. Oh, and those 3 defense platforms guarding your homeworld. Currently experiencing what we call technical difficulties. This is a fabrication, Loknar hissed. A visual trick. Ambassador Winters smiled sympathetically. I understand your skepticism. Perhaps you'd like to contact your fleet admiral? Or the High Council? Go ahead, we'll wait. Loknar signaled frantically to his communications officer, who shook her head. Sir, all long-range communications are offline. We're isolated. Now, about those weapons you were about to fire, continued Ambassador Winters. We've temporarily disabled them, along with your propulsion systems. A precautionary measure, you understand. How? The question escaped Loknar before he could stop himself. We've been monitoring Draxxian communications for quite some time, Torres explained. Your encryption was impressive for about 6 months. Then we cracked it. Your network architecture, while robust against external attacks, has several exploitable vulnerabilities when accessed from within. From within? That's not possible, unless Loknar turned slowly to stare at his command crew. No one on your crew betrayed you, Admiral, Ambassador Winters assured him. We simply inserted our own code when your scout ships mapped our system 3 years ago. You've been carrying our little gifts throughout your network ever since. Loknar collapsed back into his command chair, mandibles slack with shock. Oh, and while we're sharing, Torres added with an almost cheerful tone, those scans you ran on Earth. We modified the results. Our actual defensive capabilities are somewhat more advanced than reported. The 17 other worlds, Loknar managed to say. Did you? Why ratio? Intervene? No, we learned about those too late, Ambassador Winters replied, her expression hardening slightly. But we've been helping them rebuild while preparing for your eventual arrival here. You're rather predictable, Admiral. Loknar found himself speechless for the first time in his long career of planetary extortion. Now then, Winters continued briskly. Shall we discuss those terms again? We're still quite open to a mutually beneficial relationship. We'll reactivate your systems once we've reached an understanding. Your move, Admiral. For 3 excruciating hours, Admiral Loknar sat in emergency conference with his command staff, desperately trying to devise a response to the humans' shocking demonstration. Lieutenant Kraz worked frantically to restore basic ship functions, while Officer Mech attempted to re-establish contact with the Draxxian fleet. Commander Plex remained unusually quiet throughout. It makes no sense, Loknar muttered, pacing the conference room. How could primitives who only recently discovered nuclear fission penetrate our networks? Even with stolen technology, the learning curve would be insurmountable. Perhaps they had help, Commander Plex said softly. Loknar stopped pacing. What did you say? Plex stood, his posture straighter than usual. I said, perhaps they had help, Admiral. From whom? The Galactic Confederation? The Regellian Compact? They wouldn't dare interfere with Draxxian expansion. No, Plex said. From me. The room fell dead silent. Loknar's secondary hearts skipped several beats. You? My second in command? Impossible. Guards, seize this traitor. Loknar bellowed. The guards didn't move. They can't hear you, Plex explained. This room is currently isolated from ship communications. Just us, Admiral. Loknar lunged for his ceremonial dagger, only to find the sheath empty. Looking for this? Plex held up the ornate weapon. I took the liberty of removing it earlier. Please, sit down. There are things you need to understand. Something in Plex's tone and newfound authority made Loknar comply, sinking into a chair. Explain yourself, traitor. I'm not a traitor to our people, Admiral, quite the opposite. Plex activated a holographic display. What I'm about to tell you contradicts everything in our official records. The hologram showed Earth, but not as they had first observed it. This Earth had massive orbital structures, hidden defense systems, and fleets of advanced ships cleverly concealed behind the moon and in Lagrange points. Humans have been quietly exploring space for nearly 5 decades, Plex explained. Their public space programs are deliberately primitive, a facade maintained while their actual space force expanded. That's impossible, Loknar stammered. Our scouts would have detected. Their cloaking technology surpassed ours 20 Earth years ago, Plex interrupted. And they're not aggressive expansionists like us. They establish contact carefully, peacefully. The hologram shifted to show humans meeting with various alien species, including the insectoid Draxxians, long-standing enemies of the Draxxian Empire. They've established diplomatic relations with 27 species, Admiral, including several we've alienated through our resource acquisition methods. Loknar's mandibles trembled with rage. How long have you been collaborating with them? 3 years, Plex admitted. I was part of the advanced scout mission. My ship detected unusual energy signatures and investigated. We were captured effortlessly. But instead of imprisonment or execution, they offered dialogue, showed us evidence of Draxxian atrocities we'd never been told about. Worlds stripped bare. Civilizations collapsed after our resource acquisitions. Draxxian glory requires sacrifice, Loknar insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Does it require extinction? Plex activated another hologram showing a desolate, barren planet. This was Talos IV after we acquired its resources. The 3 billion sentients reduced to less than 10 million, now dependent on Confederation aid. Aid provided largely by humans, incidentally. Loknar stared at the devastation, momentarily speechless. Humans have surpassed us, Admiral, Plex continued. Not just in cloaking and cyber warfare, but in sustainable resource extraction, terraforming, energy production. Yet despite their advantages, they genuinely offered cooperation. Then why this? Loknar gestured around them. Why disable our ships? Why the show of force? Because you threatened their planet, Plex replied simply. Their primary defensive protocol is called measured response. They disable rather than destroy, neutralize threats without casualties whenever possible. All this time, Loknar whispered, comprehension finally dawning. The meeting, the proposal, it was genuine? Completely. They've already helped the Corellian Empire resolve their resource crisis through asteroid mining techniques. The Draxxians could benefit similarly. But your extortion attempt triggered their defensive protocols. Loknar slumped in his chair, his entire worldview crumbling. The High Council will never believe this. They already do, Plex said quietly. While you were strategizing, Earth representatives contacted them directly. They provided evidence of everything I've told you, along with a renewed offer of cooperation. The Council has accepted. Loknar looked up sharply. Without consulting me? You've been relieved of command, Admiral. Ineffective immediately. The crushing weight of this final revelation left Loknar speechless as the enormity of his miscalculation became undeniably clear. Admiral Loknar sat alone in his quarters, surrounded by the medals and commendations of his once illustrious career. The ship's systems had been partially restored enough for life support and basic functions, but weapons and propulsion remained offline. A courtesy Ambassador Winters had called it, to allow him time to consider his options. Options, as if he had any. The door chimed. Loknar didn't respond, but it slid open anyway. Commander Plex entered, carrying a data tablet. What now, traitor? Loknar growled without looking up. Come to gloat before my execution? Humans don't execute prisoners, Plex replied, setting the tablet on the desk. Another difference between them and us. So I'm to rot in some primitive Earth prison instead. How merciful. Plex sighed, a whistling sound through his breathing spiracles. You still don't understand. They're offering you a choice, Admiral. The same choice they initially offered our Empire, cooperation or isolation. Cooperation, Loknar spat the word. You mean surrender, subjugation. Review the terms. Plex indicated the tablet. Judge for yourself. Reluctantly, Loknar activated the device. Resource sharing agreements, technological exchange protocols, medical advancement partnerships, all heavily favoring the Draxxian Empire. The humans were offering access to asteroid mining techniques that would triple resource yields while eliminating the need for planetary strip mining. Terraforming technology to restore damaged Draxxian colony worlds. Medical breakthroughs that could extend Draxxian lifespans by 40 cycles. This is suspiciously generous, Loknar said, mandibles twitching with confusion. It's how they operate, Plex explained. Humans believe cooperative relationships yield greater long-term benefits than conquest. Their history proved it on their world, and they've applied the same principle to interstellar relations. Loknar scrolled through the document, his confusion growing. Where are their demands? Resource concessions? Territory rights? Open trade routes? Cultural exchange? Non-aggression pacts? That's it. Impossible. No species is this accommodating. A communication alert sounded from the ship's central system. Incoming transmission from the Draxxian High Council, Priority Alpha, announced the computer. The view screen activated to show Council Leader Vrask, his aged exoskeleton gleaming under ceremonial lighting. Admiral Loknar, Vrask began without preamble. We have received a comprehensive diplomatic proposal from Earth representatives. After review, the Council has voted unanimously to accept their terms. Loknar rose from his seat. Supreme Leader, with respect, these humans cannot be trusted. Their technological capabilities have been deliberately misrepresented. This could be a trap. The Council is aware of Earth's true capabilities, Vrask interrupted. They provided extensive evidence, including documentation of 17 instances where they could have destroyed Draxxian fleets but chose restraint. Including yours, Admiral. Loknar fell silent. The humans have outlined a resource-sharing initiative that will resolve our critical shortages within one cycle, Vrask continued. Additionally, they've offered medical technology that could eliminate the hatchling mortality crisis. The benefits are too substantial to reject based on pride. And my role in this new arrangement? Loknar asked, already knowing the answer. Vrask's mandibles clicked in the Draxxian equivalent of a diplomatic grimace. Your service record has been noted. However, the Council believes new leadership is required for this unprecedented alliance. Commander Plex has been appointed as our ambassador to Earth, effective immediately. Loknar turned to Plex, who had the decency to look uncomfortable. The humans have requested your presence at the signing ceremony, Vrask added. A gesture of reconciliation. Your attendance is not optional, Admiral. After the transmission ended, Loknar stared silently at the blank screen. For what it's worth, Plex said quietly, they argued against your removal. Said everyone deserves a second chance. Loknar barked a harsh laugh. How perfectly, infuriatingly human. Will you attend the ceremony? Loknar turned to the viewport, gazing at the distant blue planet that had so thoroughly outmaneuvered him. Yes, he finally said. I want to see exactly what defeated the great Admiral Loknar. Not weapons or warriors, but cooperation. He practically choked on the word. The ultimate humiliation. 1 year later. Junior Resource Liaison Vaznik Loknar, formerly Admiral Loknar, conqueror of 17 worlds, shuffled data tablets across his undersized desk in the Draxxian Embassy on Earth. His new uniform lacked any decorative spikes or ceremonial weapons. Even his mandible polish had been downgraded to standard issue. Through the viewport beside his desk, he could see New Geneva sprawling below a gleaming metropolis where humans and various alien species moved about their business. The Draxxian Embassy occupied 3 floors of the United Species Tower, sandwiched between the Regelian Diplomatic Corps and, adding insult to injury, the Draxxian Trade Commission. Former enemies, now chatting amiably in the shared cafeteria. Resource Liaison Loknar called a cheerful voice. Those reports ready for the Joint Committee? Loknar suppressed a mandible twitch of annoyance as Ambassador Winters approached his desk. Always so insufferably pleasant. Yes, "Ambassador," he replied stiffly, handing over the tablets. "Asteroid belt extraction has exceeded projections by 27%. The Empire's resource crisis is officially resolved." "Excellent news. The Council will be pleased." She paused, studying him. "You know, your analysis work has been exceptional. There's an opening on the Advanced Technologies Exchange team if you're interested." "I'm satisfied with my current position," Loknar lied. After she departed, Loknar returned to staring out the viewport. A Draxxian supply ship was docking at the orbital platform, preparing to load water purification systems developed by human engineers. The same technology that would save 3 Draxxian colony worlds from drought. His personal communication device chimed. A message from his nestmate back home, thanking him for securing their hatchling's place in the New Earth Draxxian medical program. Their offspring, once doomed by a genetic defect, now had a 97% survival probability thanks to human gene therapy. Loknar found himself struggling with unfamiliar emotions. Gratitude? Shame? Perhaps both. The embassy door slid open, admitting Ambassador Plex, now Supreme Ambassador Plex, accompanied by General Torres. Both were laughing at some shared joke. "Ah, Vaznik," Plex called out. "Join us for the reception? The Arcturian delegation has arrived." "I have reports to file," Loknar replied automatically. Torres approached his desk while Plex continued down the corridor. "Still punishing yourself, I see," the general observed. "I'm simply performing my duties," Loknar responded stiffly. Torres leaned against the viewport. "You know, a year ago I argued against your demotion. Said you were just doing what your culture taught you was right." How magnanimous, Loknar couldn't keep the sarcasm from his voice. "Not really. We'd been tracking your career for 7 years. Who knew exactly when you'd discover Earth and what you'd do when you found us?" Loknar's head snapped up. 7 years? But that would mean. "We knew about the Draxxian Empire long before you knew about Earth," Torres confirmed with a nod. "Your tendency to target resource-rich worlds with minimal apparent defenses made you predictable. We had time to prepare." "Then why not simply destroy my fleet when I arrived? Why this elaborate charade?" Torres smiled. "Because that's not who we are. Humans tried the conquest approach with each other for millennia. It never led to lasting peace or prosperity. We learned, eventually, that genuine cooperation produces better outcomes for everyone." He gestured at the bustling embassy. "Even former enemies." "A dangerously naive philosophy," Loknar muttered. "Is it?" Torres asked. "Your empire is thriving. A resource crisis solved. Medical breakthroughs saving lives. Trade expanding. All without a single shot fired." As Torres departed, Loknar turned back to the viewport, watching shuttles come and go from a dozen different worlds. Perhaps the strangest thing wasn't that humans had outsmarted him, but that they'd never wanted to defeat him at all, just to help. Irritatingly effective, he grudgingly admitted to the empty room. These humans and their friendship. And despite his best efforts, Junior Resource Liaison Vaznik Loknar found the corners of his mandibles lifting in what, on a human, might almost be called a smile.